Do you think that corporate mentality has persevered like through until now? Because obviously gaming has become a very corporate dominated world. Do you think that's a result of that first sort of competition that started back then?
Well, I think that one of the things that Mattel really hit Atari on was the graphics. And that continues to this day. I mean, that's always, that's always been one step more. The graphics are better, the graphics are better. Nintendo with the Wii kind of went in a different direction, which the controllers are different. But it's pretty much always been, from the very first, which one had better graphics. And then
which is a problem right now, because we're getting so close to photorealism, it's kind of silly to say my photorealism is better than your photorealism. There's not a headroom for differentiation.
It's an interesting question because I think that I remember when gaming first began, and I remember when I first sat down to game on the Atari and on the Intellivision, like I was blown away by what was happening in my world. I was like, we'd landed on the moon. In my mind, like graphics could never get any better than this. And I was like, how can we ever get better than this? This is phenomenal. But do you think that back then gaming was more about something inherent in human beings in the sense that we naturally want to game, or do you believe that it's something that it was driven more by the graphics?
The DNA of the human being is to play games. I mean, you see evidence of gameplay around the most primitive caves where they'd hollowed out the clay and played games with the knuckle bones of the animals that they built. And the human being has adapted whatever technology, whether it be cast iron in the 1800s to whittled wood in the 1600s, and now the microprocessor, and as you get faster and faster, it's there. And so man plays, man competes, and man uses the technology at hand.
Yeah. I think you can speak to this better than anybody, in that when computers started, and then building these big computers, they started like playing chess and everything, and the excuse was gameplay theory, and this will teach us artificial intelligence. But these guys, I mean, the public didn't know about this, but in universities and in big corporations,
it was a big deal.
They're creating games. That's what they're playing games. That's what you first saw, right?
Well, I not just saw it in the game, but I actually programmed games on the big computers, and I can remember before
multi-million-dollar computers.
Yeah, these were multi-million-dollar computers, and I would say there were at least 20 different games that would have been hacked by various people.
Yeah, well, the internet, kind of started that way with the ARPANET, with the original adventure game.
Yeah.
That went from Boston, was it?
Right.
And then to Stanford and to UCLA. And this was a game that, was the first text adventure game that
and it was great.
Oh yeah.
I mean, we all played it.
I love that.
We all played it.
WYSIWYG.
Oh yeah. I'm in
XYZZY.
And caught in little twisty passages, all alike.
All alike.
Now, do you think the heritage of gaming, what it really was, back when it was with Pong and in those original games, do you think they've helped carve what gaming is, or do you think it's taken a new direction recently with the developments in the technology, the developments in the changing mindset of gaming?
Well, first of all, there is no longer a game market. There are game markets, and there are game players, and some of them are as different than each other as dogs and cats and rats and mice. It's really different. I mean, the internet social game player is so different than the console game player.
Yeah.
They're almost two different
or
worlds.
the casual game player.
Or the casual game player, yeah. And so it's really a thing where this diversity has actually embraced more players. We're getting back to the kinds of ratios that we actually had in the late 70s.
With gaming going where it is going, how have you guys stayed in touch with it? Are you still on board? Do you still game?
Absolutely.
Still gaming to this day?
And of course, I'm still selling Intellivision. We're still moving it out to new platforms.
Yeah.
Classic games, new platforms.
And have you felt that, have you felt an attachment to your time of gaming and your generation of gaming, or have you developed with it and enjoy it just as much today in its new form as you did back then?
I'm personally looking forward to using the new technologies. And it turns out that there's some things that haven't been available. For example, in the new iPhone 4, you have not just XYZ in real space, but you have phi, rho, and theta, which gives you you know, basically a vector in space.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden that opens up a whole new world of augmented reality, which I think is going to be the next big thing.
Do you think you'll be capitalizing on that? Obviously a question for both of you. Do you see Intellivision and Atari going forward into this new world, in this new generation of gaming?
Well, and in television, certainly what we'd like to do. Right now, we're still kind of stuck with the reformatting the original games, but that is the next step that we would like to take, and it's really just down to a case of the availability of capital and everything to do it. To take the games that we started with from the 1980s and then start adding on, doing the new version of these games. We'd love to take Astro Smash and Night Stalker, some of our games from back then, and really take advantage of what he's talking about in terms of, there's a whole series of games that one of our previous programmers from Mattel did, which is all audio games. It's for the iPhone, and you don't really have any visual clues. You do everything puzzles and spatial recognition all through earphones, and it's really amazing. But the problem is that there's still the exact how the market works, how you monetize this stuff isn't quite there for moving forward to it. But it will be. It will be.
How about with Atari? Can you see yourself emerging in this world?
Absolutely. I mean, Atari is moving its center of gravity back to Los Angeles, which is kind of interesting. And I'm back on the board, and so being on the board is sort of like being grandfather instead of father, so it's advisory rather than.
Do you hand out more candy once you're the grandfather?
Well, it's basically the kids can mess in their diaper and you have to send them back to mom. But anyway, we're taking a lot of the old IP, recasting it and bringing it up to today's models. But more than that, I've got two sons right now that have started a game company in augmented reality, in which you don't realize it, but this very spot has an alternative reality that's associated with this spot. It's a deep, dark forest, and it's inhabited by really mean monkeys.
You've worked at Ngametv.
I think I see one over here.
And you can take over a Starbucks. You can take over your own apartment, because it's all that, and you can plant trees and do all kinds of interesting things, but in a geographic nature.
Fantastic.
That's cool.
That is cool. That is very cool. Final question for you both, obviously, is when you first began in this industry and you had the vision that gaming would one day be what it is, did you ever see it arriving at this point now? Did you ever see it as big as it is?
No. I knew it was going to be big. I'm not sure I ever quantified it. I mean, in an engineer's mind, you have to put a number on it.
Right.
And I don't think I ever put the number on it.
I don't think, from that standpoint, no, but people ask, did you ever see, look how realistic these things are. Did you ever think that? I go, yeah. I mean, I remember we were sitting around back at Mattel, and a guy coming in talking about these bulletin boards and how you can have these games that are huge. And so, we thought that, that would be great. We'll have some way to do that. And like you say, the photorealism of stuff, we knew that was just we'd get to that point. I actually thought we'd get there sooner. If it hadn't been for the crash of 1983, I think we would have gotten there like 10 years sooner.
No question about it. I agree 100%. That 1983 set the industry back 10 years.
Oh, yeah.
Easily.
Yeah, we were working on the next generation of Intellivision, which was a 68,000 based processor similar to the Amiga. And this was going to be something that had multiple gameplay over modem. This was all designed in 1983. We were working on this. The resolution was much closer to what you would see today. But then everybody got out of the market. Everybody was afraid of it.
I like to say that the industry committed suicide. It wasn't homicide. It was suicide.
Yeah.
And then it left the door wide open for Nintendo to come in and get massive market share. Yeah, it was totally stupid.
Yeah, the senior marketing guy at Mattel Electronics, he was the one person that I know of who looked at the industry and said, in the 1983, when the crash and when we lost 300 million, and I think Atari lost $1 billion or something like that at that time, who looked and said, the actual sales are going up. The demand is going up. It's just the supply has gotten crazy, and the supply was all, really bad in a lot of cases because everybody was just buying their way into it and write a checkbook and come up with a game that's pretty bad. So
everybody tried to basically put 10 million units into a market that only wanted to have 3.
Right.
And so and all the cartridges to support all that. And so there was so much oversupply that everybody cut prices, and so volumes went up.
Right, exactly. But then everybody got out of the market in 1984, except, like I say, this guy at Mattel who said it went up. And so he bought the rights, and that's what kept Intellivision going. And Intellivision kept making new games until 1989. They went through the entire decade.
So all that being said, do you ever have any regrets as to your role in the industry, or how you felt you could have perhaps stayed in it and steered it in a different direction?
I'm very sad that I left the marketplace. Of course, I did it before. I left in '78, and I think that I know that I would have made different mistakes than Warner did. But whether that would have been definitive or not, I don't know.
Yeah.
And see, I was at the opposite end of the scale because I was a programmer back then. And other people were in charge, and I've kind of worked my way up to being now president of the company. But once Mattel got rid of it, and then I bought it from the guy who bought it from Mattel. So
now, in your beginnings, you were working as a developer on Tron, which is
Tron Solar Sailor, one of the Intellivoice games. Yes,
which is now finally a sequel.
Tron
which
Legacy
is coming out soon. And in addition to that, we also have the film Atari, which is coming out hopefully soon, to be played by
Leonardo DiCaprio.
Leonardo DiCaprio, yeah. Splitting image.
By the way, we have good stories at Intellivision also, so call me Hollywood. Call me.
How do you feel as if
that's my hope, is that your film is successful, and then the way Hollywood always rips something off, they say, well, maybe that Intellivision guy's got something.
Well, I am hoping it's successful because I want it to be Nolan Bushnell, the sequel. So, because then we have Chuck E. Cheese, and then we have E-TAC.
May I say one thing here? I don't know if you know this or not, but when you left Atari, you had something like a 5-year deal that you would not get into the video game market.
Right.
That scared us at Mattel so badly when it was coming up in 83, I guess. When it was coming up that you could get back in, everyone was going, he's getting back in. We're now, they weren't afraid of Coleco. They weren't afraid of anything like that. They were afraid that Nolan Bushnell was going to get back in and take over the industry again. There was going to be something marvelous. And you did Chuck E. Cheese, and they're going, wait a minute, so pizza, wait. They were expecting some 3D holographic, video game system that he had been working on in the back room, and it's a pizza place.
Well, I have 5-year ADD, and so what I really have to do is I sort of have to change industries around every 5 years, otherwise I start craving crazy.
Well, I think Chuck E. Cheese probably complemented the gaming industry more than anything else. I think there's a lot of gamers out there who love the invention of Chuck E. Cheese as much as Atari.
Well, that entire, whoever first married the idea of pizza and arcade games, because we had a place in Manhattan Beach, my hometown, called Mystic Pizza, that we used to go to after work. We'd work all day on video games and go down the street to the Mystic Pizza and play arcade games while getting our pizza. That was genius.
Now, Keith, you have the Intellivision coming out to join us on the iPad and the iPhone.
Right. This 1980 was the year that the Intellivision first came out nationally. So 2010, that's our 30th anniversary. So we're celebrating we're on the iPad and iPhone, published by VH1, and we're coming out on the DS in September, which we're very excited about because it has the dual screen. So the overlays, if you remember the overlays from the controllers, they show up on the lower screen and are touch sensitive, so you can play the games exactly like you played them back in the day.
Neat.
Yeah, it's great. It's the perfect platform for us.
Right.
As well as the iPad and iPhone, which also have the touch screen.
And Nolan, we can expect things from you as well?
Yeah, Atari is doing a repackage of a lot of their classic games, updating them, and it will be on our website and social gameplay under Play Atari. And so it's atari.com, Play Atari. It's going to be a whole new big website.
Fantastic. Gentlemen, thank you so much. We now go to Marisha Ray, who's actually coming to us from E3, so let's check that out.